Hi everyone, welcome back. Now, hopefully you've just heard Acts chapter 9 being read out. And if you did, I wonder if you can guess what animal that reminded me of. It wasn't a donkey from travelling. It wasn't a horse. Actually, I don't think you'd have thought about this animal being there in Acts chapter 9 at all. But what happened in chapter 9 was an almost impossible transformation. And that kind of reminds me of caterpillars.
Because if there's one thing we've learned from them, it's that change is possible. This is a brimstone. It emerged from an egg a few weeks ago, but now it's ready for a change. First, it spins a silken pad, a place to anchor hooks on the rear of its body. In a move to rival a contortionist, it passes strands of silk behind itself, creating a girdle to support it through the change to come. With anchor and line secure, the transformation can take place. Caterpillars are little more than stomachs on legs. But that body has served its purpose and can be discarded in favour of another. The caterpillar's head is about to split wide open, and when it does, something very different will emerge. A chrysalis. The caterpillar was an eating machine, an identity rolled up like a sock and discarded. This body is for something different, an agent of near miraculous change, and one responsible for making butterflies powerful symbols of hope and transformation. This is a sign that something beautiful is surely on its way.
How can one animal, like a caterpillar, change into something so different? I mean, there are so many ugly caterpillars and so many beautiful butterflies. But these transformations, God kind of almost, I think, uses them to point to change in people. Change that Jesus can bring to someone. You see, in Acts chapter 9, we see a bloke called Saul. And he couldn't get any more opposed to Jesus than he was. But he is completely transformed when he meets Jesus. His whole purpose changes. So as we recap the story now, let's see if you can kind of follow along and see where you see this moment where Saul changes from an ugly caterpillar into Paul, the beautiful butterfly.
The miracle of mercy. Paul. This is Saul. Saul was a Pharisee who hated the followers of Jesus so much that he would hunt them down to be brought to trial in Jerusalem. And he would even seek to murder them. Saul was uttering threats with every breath, and he was eager to kill the Lord's followers. So he went to the high priest. He asked him to write a letter to the Jews in Damascus that would allow him to arrest any Christians he found there. He wanted to bring them, both men and women, back to Jerusalem in chains. Now Saul went on his way, and as he came near Damascus, a light from heaven flashed around him, and he heard a voice that said, "Saul, Saul, why are you persecuting me?" Saul cried out, "Who are you, Lord?" And the voice said, "I am Jesus. Rise and go into the city, and you will be told what to do." So Saul got up and he opened his eyes, but he couldn't see anything. So the men who were with Saul led him into the city. After 3 days, a man named Ananias came to Saul. He put his hands on Saul, and immediately Saul could see again. And with that, Saul became a follower of Jesus. He became the very thing he had tried to hunt. And he immediately began telling people that Jesus is the Son of God, and he taught them about the mercy of God that he had received. And all who heard him were amazed. He then went by a new name, Paul, as he began preaching not just to the Jewish people, but to everyone, despite many difficulties like being imprisoned, shipwrecked, and narrowly escaping death multiple times. Paul continued to preach about Jesus. Paul said that he would do everything he could to save people and help them know God. And that's just what he did in order to reach people who would otherwise be unreached. And many came to know Jesus because of what Paul said. Paul taught many in his day through his letters, but even more have come to learn more about Jesus through the letters of Paul that can be read even to this day.
I wonder how you would have described Saul. Mean, angry, a bully even. But, you know, even people like Saul can have hope. Jesus didn't give up on Saul. And because Jesus loved Saul and didn't give up on him, we have this beautiful transformation. Our song today kind of picks up on the theme that no matter what Saul was thinking or feeling, God still loved him.
Guess what? God loves you and he wants to be your friend. Guess what? God loves you and he wants to be your friend. When you're sad, God loves you and he wants to be your friend. When you're happy, God loves you and he wants to be your friend. When you're scared, God loves you
Now we know that when we meet Jesus and we change, it isn't complete change. Like that butterfly, we still do things wrong and make mistakes. Saul wasn't perfect by any stretch, and neither was Paul, because they're both human beings. We all sin. But he had been changed by Jesus. And so it would be great if you could have a chat with your family about what difference Jesus has made in your lives. Have a chat with your parents or your brothers or sisters. How has Jesus made a change to you or to them? But you're going to have to wait for a little while in order to do that, because the service is still happening, and so maybe talk that question through at lunchtime or dinner time. Before we go back to the main service, there's a little bit of a craft for you to at least start making if you want to. Thinking about the change that Paul went through. There is a PDF, a little document that you can have printed off if you haven't already, and you can then colour that in and cut it out, and one side is Saul and the other side is Paul, so you can stick those back to back. If you've got an old pencil, you could use that as your stick. And you can maybe even act out what happened to Saul when you've made that and coloured that in.